log into the system, there's actually 3 different interfaces depending on what your role is. I'm an administrator, so basically I see everything. But these are actually statuses of all the encoders that are currently available in the system. Looks like DLPE's got only 1 going. There's a couple of them that are down. Most of those are just like old hardware with that you just end up unplugging, or a couple of these here are just test ones to mess with. There's a couple of different versions out. This one here is actually the most recent that I've redone, so it actually scales to multiple server head ends. So if my web server dies, I can go to another one and still bring everything out. The other ones, unfortunately, are basically hard-coded to a central server. Now, if you actually go into a, let's say a student walks into a room and they just want to do a quick recording of a faculty member does, they basically just get the interface for just doing a single recording. And so this is just doing just a quick ad hoc recording. You can put in basic metadata. There's your 3 different media types you can encode. And this is basically set up so that we can, anything that can be run from a Windows command line, we can script. So this is basically lane, and then we got lane media and real media. If you want to actually associate it with a particular department within the school, you can also associate it with a course, and this is what actually integrates it with Brennan. So this is actual course information. So you can actually associate with your specific section. We do have some scheduling data for that, but we ended up never using it, so that's not really exposed. But I think we can put in whatever. Now once we hit start, it actually opens up a SOAP connection to the encoder that's sitting in the classroom. And it starts the recording, gets a timer going, and then this is what you basically look at. You can actually go back and start other recordings. So our distance ed group, you'll have an operator that will handle a couple of different recordings, and they can jump to whatever room, and it just brings this up if it's already recording. If you're the person who did it, you can stop it, or if you're an administrator. If not, it just says this person's recording, and it just locks you out. The default time for recording is 2 hours, but if you wanted to do a longer one, you can just schedule however long you need it. I usually try and let it go for a little bit, because if you quickly start and stop, some of the encoding processes don't like that. So, I mean, this is one of the reasons that we don't want to just allow arbitrary start and stops, because it just takes a little bit of time for the encoding process to start and then for it to stop. So one of the things we're thinking of is just doing marks. And I'm not sure exactly how well it will scale, but also possibly just recording a whole day and just put marks and then split it all out later, because we have constant problems of professors going over. And it was those 4 things that are going to be on the test that were 5 minutes past it was supposed to record that are most crucial for the whole hour. So for the most part, we've got operators that manually do that. Still stopping. This is how demos work, right? The one time it's going to pick up this.
It says beta.
That's okay. It says
we're
beta.
okay.
There we go. So now the system's successfully gone through all its checks to stop the recording. It's checksum that video file, and it's basically opened a SOAP connection back to the server, said, here's the file I'm uploading, this is the MD5 checksum of it. It's probably already up there by now. Sometimes a full hour might take a few seconds to actually upload. But it's actually sent to my email account a link to the recording. I basically get, these are all the recordings that have happened, so this is essentially how many we have going on each day. And this is extremely light because we're in summer. So, and this is However you recorded it, this just does a wrap for you. Gives you your metadata here. We can generate whatever types of feeds for these particular courses based on that. This one is English media, obviously. They do all of this production. So there's actually an operator sitting in the classroom dealing with this, and they'll do pan and tilt. They'll zoom in. They'll do switch over to picture in picture.
Is this the player you were talking about yesterday that will auto detect whether it's a live stream?
Yep. Yeah. I can actually go back and show you what a live one looks like.
Oh.
But I've actually got both downloads here. This is my old one, which goes through PHP, which is kind of slow. And this one, I don't know how well you can see the link at the bottom. That's actually what generates the, that goes in the back end. That's the actual ID of the file within the system. And then you can actually arbitrarily name it whatever you want. It'll just hand you the file with that name.
Okay.
So if you actually wanted to post a link on your website and say, today's featured lecture.wp, whatever, it just knows which one to grab and then gives it to you. But that's all back into Apache, so I can scale that as wide as I need to. That hits all of our RSS feeds. Everything basically goes through that little system. So let me go ahead and fill this. And so if I pull up, this part's a little clunky. Some of the UIs could use a little bit more work as far as the flows are concerned. For example, I don't have a link where I can just jump to the live one. If I want the live link, I'll actually come to the calendar. One kind of cool thing that we have is you can go back and see everything that was recorded.
That's nice.
Granted, they just called it class. All the metadata's in there. We're actually surprised they even called it class. Before it was like, ASDF or something. The other headache I have is the operators want to assign their copyrights to themselves, which I've been fussing at them about. But they keep putting them in.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
It's just because out of habit, they just.
they're not supposed to, and it's not really enforced, and it hasn't been a problem yet. But it's just kind of one of those things. No one's really made a big issue of it, so they just keep doing it. But when it happens, I'll go to say I told you so. But you see how this one is actually green? That means it's a live recording. And so right now it's going to go get that live off the server. I don't have Windows totally configured right now, so there we go. So this is actually being streamed live off of a Windows Media server. And so if it's, and had it been a pre-recorded one, it just would have done a normal RTSP to US. But we do everything in pretty much full standard depth resolution, about 350 kilobits per second. Fortunately, they have really nice broadcast cameras. Lighting is good. So the actual source material we get to the encode is real high quality to begin with. So our encodings tend to look much, much better. Pardon? Oh, that could have been.
This is appreciating the fact that you have whiteboards in your classroom.
Well, yeah, we actually made a big deal out of that because we have a lot of AV equipment like the control pads right next to the chalkboards.
Thank you.
So yeah, every week you go there with the air compressor and try and clean them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well we've got like 300 something classrooms with that. So after we replaced a lot of interfaces and control pads, we were able to make a little bigger deal out of it because one of those little guys costs as much as a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Just put it in whiteboard.
Put it away.
Are you archiving? How are you archiving this media?
We used to do live archiving. Anyone who's managed a Helix streaming server can tell you that does not work very well. As the recording is happening, it's recording locally to disk and streaming live. And the way the workflow works for actually getting a video file published, it uploads the file, it keeps it locally. It uploads it, which goes into basically a big incoming bucket. And then once it's been checksummed and validated, and we know it's the right file, it gets moved to the correct directory within the system. It's still kept in the upload bucket. And then over time, we delete backwards, but we just want to make sure that we
So, and with real media, one of our concerns is, 30 years from now, being able to open this file format. Are you guys concerned with recording Windows media in the real format?
Windows Media I'm happy with because I can usually convert it. Real Media's got some licensing loopholes to be able to convert it. I also have like a ton of old like G2 real garbage, which Real Player 11 broke, and there's also some other server issues with it. So we're basically, as we move forward, we're trying to get everything on H.264 and use that as our standard. I'm looking at doing possibly AVIs with JPEG 2000 and PCM as the master. Depending what kind of storage we have from that. But for the most part, we encode into the final format in the classroom and then send it to the rest of the workflow. Let's see. So that's pretty much that. Get an idea what the calendar system looks like. If you actually wanted to do a schedule, you can go through here and do recurring schedules and go to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and times. It's really cool, nobody uses it. But there's other nice code in there is you can actually delete the whole recurring string. So if you schedule like 50 recordings into the future, and that's all one recurring event, it's just like Outlook or anything else. It knows that they're all connected. You can delete the whole string.
So do faculty actually log in every time and then start their recordings rather than creating a recurring schedule?
No, almost everyone designates some administrator or some technical support person to handle that for them. I think I maybe have 1 or 2 faculty on all the campus that want to do it themselves.
And the tech support people don't want to create a recurring schedule because it's easier not to have to deal with the post-processing if you start.
No, just to never start and stop on time. And you can't, one of the features we don't have is you don't have like a snooze button to give you another 5 minutes. So when it's set to stop at 4 p.m., it stops.
Right.
If there was a last, oh wait, we're going to go a little bit longer, you're pretty much out of luck. So that's kind of where we ended up doing pretty much all manual. So that's that setup. I don't want to take up too much time. This is basically our infrastructure, where we've got our 3 tiers of storage. This is actually currently how things look. This is basically our current infrastructure. We're bringing up a third machine, but basically we'll have 3 Solaris machines that are all zoned out. Every zone has its own service, and then those are basically resource limited, so that we don't have any clobbering the others. But it lets us basically spread out our apps across multiple machines, our streaming infrastructure is spread across multiple machines. As it's been more than once. So we've had to fail over to nearline on a backup server with maybe 20 minutes of continuity loss. And once we get all of these free and everything really automated, and we're looking at putting an IP load balancer in front of it, that'll be pretty much nothing. So, showed that yesterday. These are just kind of some of what our load has been over the years. About late 2004 is when we launched DCRS. So that's pretty much been responsible for the majority of the content going into the system. That's pretty much what our spread is. Obviously, I want MP4 to go really big, the rest of it go small. So like that. So these are basically how many recordings the system has done over the last years, as well as the spread of how many files they've done. Obviously, our distance ed group is responsible for the vast majority of what's been in code. Let me actually jump to the.
Can you go back to the, I'm sorry, I just noticed something on the slide that was interesting.
On what?
Can you go back a little? Oh, no, you have to go forward. Forward. Yeah, so I thought it was interesting that you were actually piloting another system, and I was just wondering where you're at in those.
Well, at any point in time, we're piloting like 9 things.
Yeah.
we've actually had Integrity for a couple of years now. We got sold a campus license of it, we were gonna roll it out for everybody, and quickly discovered it was not gonna be a campus-wide solution. So basically, we pulled back to a much smaller pilot with just, I think there's maybe 9 courses on it, and we may go a little bigger now, but that's about it. They're developing the system, the back end, to be much more of an enterprise app, to be manageable by administrators rather than script line junkies trying to patch stuff together to make it work. And when it gets there, maybe it'll be a campus-wide solution, but we had a real difficult time with it. Accordance great if you got 20 grand in classroom to buy one. The other problem with it is that it's also not really scaled for large deployments. You don't have a really nice central management interface for it. Same goes for like MediaSite, pretty much everyone else in that area. Because they're 20 grand, people only buy a couple of them. So you don't need a large admin interface for it. And we're not a beta site with Echo 360. We're waiting for them to get a little further ahead, but we're just kind of keeping tabs on where that's going. And Panopto pretty much licensed themselves out of a pilot with us because they want endorsement. Our legal group basically said, cut out maybe 5 paragraphs out of their contract. So if they're able to sort that out, we'll look at it. If not, it may be not an option for us.
Why not stick with yours? I'm just curious.
Well, that's a definite option. So part of that is, there's 2 issues with that. One is we developed it locally, we support it. And, if I'm on vacation and someone's out sick, they don't have a contract with a vendor they can go yell at. And so there's always kind of a back and forth of, well, we want a maintenance contract with a vendor, we want 24-hour support staff we can get to that's not part of the university. Those are some of the requirements that we were getting. But on the other hand, our system has been more stable than anything else that we've looked at. And because we know the system inside and out, and there's some weird little glitch, we can fix it right away. And we're not waiting for a developer in Israel on a different time frame to fix it and then send it back, and we're out for 2 days. So we've actually made a lot of headway. I think we're getting more support of doing more homegrown and more collaborative works on that side. And especially, working with our Sakai implementation, they're getting much more comfortable being involved with some of those projects. The last thing I wanted to talk about is a project that, I just need to open for myself. A project that I've kind of been thinking and designing in my head and written a few proposals about over the last few years of a media-centric, not really a content management system, but basically a framework. And this may be something where the intellectual ideas end up fitting well into Opencast, and if so, that would be fantastic. But this is just kind of an idea that I've had, and would like to see. I basically tagged it Open Media Services, and I may end up, depending if it's sticks or not, we'll see. But basically, it's a very, very low-end system that is just meant to collect media assets and maintain some collections of those. You basically have a bucket of assets and a bucket of a bucket. But then also store metadata and some authorization schema to associate with those media assets and those collections. And those are completely abstract. We don't care what they are. You just basically have a place to put content, manage the content, and then build services onto it. So instead of having basically 5 tiers of, well, iTunes U connects to this, and this connects to this, and this connects to this, and you don't have a common interface to try and connect all that, each one is unique. This will basically give a standard platform to build everything on top of. So you could build transcoding services on top of it. You could build extensions to do podcasting, iTunes, and whatever else comes in the future, but you have a standard framework to build it on. And so since we've all realized that building a multimedia infrastructure is extremely expensive, it's not something that everyone can really do well. If we have a very low-level system that other applications can extend, like web services are done for Amazon, et cetera, and we're able to have a centralized system, but everyone can rebrand it, do what they want with it. And that would spread out to whatever level. If we wanted to do K-12 and support them, they could have their own branding, because they're just writing an interface to the backend. So that's basically the concept. Graphically, this is basically what I talked about. You just have assets collections, their associated metadata and authorization data, and some API and a service that extends on top of it. And whether that service is manipulating or delivering content out doesn't really matter. And for the most part, there's no internal authentication other than an application that's associated with it. So the application is, the outside application is dealing with the actual user authentication. It just stores whatever that is inside. Just more or less how iTunes works. But it doesn't really do anything with it. And then also this is just kind of showing how the stuff is spit out. You generally have some tools that publish into it and then other tools that are pulling content out of it or manipulating it. This is just kind of my graphic for some of my managers that understood what I was thinking about. But the content exists within, is stored within Open Media Services and then just pushed out to whatever application needs it. And actually, well, that's pretty much it for that. If anyone's interested, I've actually got access to a large cluster that our organization supports for other scientific work. But it's a standard Red Hat environment, and I'm going to move my transcode scripts into it and try and do some serious transcoding of our, how many actual video files we have, it's like 40 or 50,000 something. But trying to do some batch conversions over to H.264. And if anyone's interested in sending us content to play with, if we make a good, if it ends up being successful, that might be interesting. I wouldn't mind actually trying making this more of an open service for people to use, contribute to. Something I actually talked about really shortly last night is the thought of actually making this more of a cloud rather than a singular service. So you would essentially just have a cloud of services that people can contribute other services to, whether it be storage or transcoding or whatever. And it's just a shared environment you can build media applications on. Just an idea.